All right. There we go. Welcome in, everybody. Welcome in. Welcome in. We're just going to give everybody a little bit of time to get in here before we get started. We got some stuff to talk about today, so we'll get into that in just a little bit. How's everybody doing? I hope everybody's doing good. Drop your locations in the chat. I want to see where everybody's from today. It's always like one of my favorite things about this is seeing everybody around the world tuning in to listen. It's so cool. Why do you think Ukraine's gonna pound Russia soon? Well, they already are. Or they're attempting to with HIMARS, as you can see by the title of this. Hello from shitty Detroit. You can tell by the title that Ukraine has already begun to use HIMARS on Russia proper in the Belgorod region. So, they've been given the green light. This is what they've been waiting for. They're going to use it, and we're gonna go over what that entails and what it's going to look like. Virginia, cool. Hello from Norway. Phoenix, Arizona. Ugh, hot. Michigan, awesome. Greetings from Australia, Grand Rapids, Tampa, Germany, Houston, Melbourne. Guys, we got people from all over the world in here today. This is so hype. Say nice things about Detroit. Detroit has a up-and-coming football team that looks very promising. The auto industry, not so promising in that region, but we'll turn it around. We'll find a way. All right. Is the murder rate gone down in Detroit? I don't know. Greece, Lithuania, Slovakia. Awesome, guys. You guys are fucking so cool. It's so cool that we got people in here from all over the world. I love that. All right. Well, let me get into my little intro here. We got a lot to talk about today. We have a Southeast Asian security conference that Zelensky has attended. We have reports coming in of the peace conference that Zelensky's trying to set up, the Ukraine peace conference, and there are a couple of dropouts. Saudi Arabia has dropped out because Russia is not involved. There is no party representing Russia in these negotiations, which how can you have negotiations without one of the parties? And China has also dropped out of this peace summit because it doesn't make any sense. The last 4 or 5 that they've done these sort of things have yielded no results. Zelensky's peace plan is a complete joke. So we're going to talk about that today. We have Ukrainian HIMARS strikes on Belgorod. So this is a step up in escalation. For over a year, Ukraine has been using Western MLRS and artillery systems to shell Belgorod and Kursk region. They actively invaded the region before. So this is not really a new thing. The new aspect of these attacks is that they are using guided MLRS systems now, which are, they have to be targeted and they have to use ISR. And so where are the Ukrainians getting that information from? The Ukrainians don't have satellites. The Ukrainians don't have AWACS. The Ukrainians have drones and that they can do some of that with drones. But Russian air defense in the region is pretty strong, and we saw that from the actual failure of most of these HIMARS attacks. I'm going to show you guys an image. Actually, I can show it to you right now since we're on the topic. Let me take you over to my Twitter, and we will look at an image that was just posted. Actually, I have a couple things that we can talk about on this topic. So, all right. If you guys remember, if you want to ask questions for me to see, that they pop up and I can actually see them. Donations through super thanks and super chats are always greatly appreciated. I don't have any funding besides you guys. I like to do this full time. I want to give you guys a lot of content. Actually, I apologize. I haven't slept for like 4 days. Last night, I finally got a good night's sleep. So I wasn't going to be any good to come on here and do a live stream. I think I got my insomnia under check. But that is the easiest way you guys can ask questions. If you want to follow more of my content, you can follow me on Twitter and Telegram. Those links are in the description of this video on YouTube. And if you want more content from me, I have an exclusive Patreon video series called Demonetized, where I go over more combat-related footage and stuff that I just can't show on YouTube. That series has done very well. I think people are really enjoying it. The next video has already, or will be recorded tonight. I have all of the videos set up, so that's going to be coming out soon again. So if you guys want more content, go check it out there. All right, without further ado, let's get into it. Over to Twitter. So here's the actual physical proof that we have of ATACMS being used, you can see that there's plenty of evidence, pieces and bits. A lot of these were intercepted, which, you know, I didn't expect. I expected some damage in these first couple of days of strikes. The Russians usually are a little slow and they take time to wise up to what's going on and solve it. But they seem to be doing very well. The air defense is performing fairly well in the region. I think I saw maybe one strike on a ammunition depot that was successful, maybe. Again, it was from a source that I don't necessarily know or particularly trust. So I don't know if it was a recent photo. I don't know. I didn't see it anywhere else. And I saw there was a rumor, two majors posted it, but they were the only ones who post it. And they kind of do this thing where they post Ukrainian stories often. And it was very weird. They talked about a column that got hit in Russia on the Russian side by HIMARS, but there was never any evidence or proof of it. So we don't really know. But here we can see a recent picture that came out from the Kharkiv region. At least I think it's recent. I did a reverse Google search. I could not find it anywhere. So basically what we're looking at here is 54 canisters for HIMARS. This is how much ammunition they are firing over the last like 2 days or 3 days in the Kharkiv region. This is 324 HIMARS missiles. I don't know what their supplies are that they were given. Obviously, the U.S. delivered a ton of HIMARS munitions right before they gave the green light. This is why I said months ago that the green light had already been given. This was not a new thing. The same goes for the ATACMS, the Storm Shadows. It's all going to happen, guys. They do this thing where they play it out. They see the Russian response and then they continue. It's not going to change. You're going to see the green light for ATACMS eventually, the green light for Storm Shadow and Scalp to be used on the Belgorod and Kursk regions was just green lighted. That's a story according to BBC, which means that in the next 24 hours, we will likely see a strike on Russian airfields or whatever in the Belgorod and Kursk region using Storm Shadow cruise missiles. That is another massive escalatory step. I think we are at the point now where both sides are just kind of digging in and getting ready for the war that's coming. You know, the U.S. is posturing. The U.S. is also trying to settle the situation in the Middle East right now because I think that what they want to do is just focus on Russia and China. They can't be focusing on Russia and China and having a war going on with Hezbollah and Gaza. So they're really pushing this peace conference. It pissed a lot of the Israeli hardliners off. Ben-Gvir is threatening to oust Benjamin Netanyahu if he accepts the deal. It's a whole thing going on. It's a good thing for Hamas and Gaza. I'm not Hamas, but like the people of Gaza. It is a good thing for Hamas because that means that they didn't lose. I mean, it's been 8 months of intensive urban warfare in Gaza, and I still see videos daily of, you know, Israeli soldiers getting sniped or VOGs getting dropped on them and stuff like that. So there's still active combat operations going on down there. But the U.S. can't be supplying that and helping Ukraine to sustain the fight against Russia at the same time. Also, while potentially arming Taiwan and getting ready for whatever their plan is over there. So they delivered all of this. The green light decision was probably made months ago. This is just, it's theater. It's theater, guys. Oh, we're not going to do it. We're not going to do it. We're not going to do it. Schultz said the day before he said that before he gave the green light, he said it was ridiculous and they were never going to do it. I don't know what kind of pressure he's under. I don't know what's going on there, but the green lights are going to be given. Don't expect any rationale or logical thinking from Western pundits or, you know, Western leadership. Anybody cheering on this war right now, just don't expect logic and reason for them. They are extremely desperate. The reason why Biden is really trying to stop the situation in Gaza is because it's going to start to really, really impact his reelection possibilities. And that's a very big deal. So I don't want to tangentialize too much into different things right now. I'm going to try to stay on track with the HIMARS and the Ukraine situation. So this expenditure of HIMARS is not sustainable. There's no way that this is if this is 48 hours, 72 hours. There's no way that this is sustainable for the Ukrainians. They're going to do this thing where they're going to fire every single missile they have. They do it every time they get them. And then in a month or two, we won't see any more HIMARS or Storm Shadow scalp strikes. It's what they did with the cluster ATACMS. It's what they did with Storm Shadows and scalps with the first delivery and then the second delivery. Also, guys, expect Taurus missiles to eventually be sent. It's desperation mode. They are going to send everything that they have to try to stop this. Okay. Could Russia hit a NATO target outside of Ukraine? We'll talk about that right now, actually. So the ramifications of this event. First off, Russia has already openly stated what its objectives are, what its goals are. You don't have to do some deep analysis. We're not looking for mysteries. It's not clue. They tell us. Putin said, we are creating a sanitation zone on the border, like probably 20 kilometers or something, to push Ukrainian artillery out of range of striking traditional Russian territory, Belgorod, Kursk regions, right? Their goal is not to capture Kharkiv city. That is not their goal. The Russians are not bogged down right now. Well, I guess you could say they're bogged down, but they're not. I think that the Russians assumed that they would eventually get bogged down. I think that this operation was actually incredibly successful in the beginning, almost overly so, with the Ukrainian lines collapsing and the defenses not being prepared and everything. I read a story on my Twitter or on Twitter from Rob Lee, who is a pro-Ukrainian source, and he was talking about how one of the battalions in the town of, I think it was Vovchansk in the northern section, lost almost an entire battalion in that first couple days of the Russian incursion. So the losses were significant. The captures of Ukrainians were significant. The Russian advance was quicker than I even think the Russians expected. And it did exactly what it was intended to do. The Ukrainians pulled about 40,000 troops from different areas of the front lines from the east. Some, if they had any reserves across the river, they brought them over. Sumy region was probably, they pulled some from that area, just everywhere. Any spare reserves that they had, they brought them in. They just brought them in. And that is exactly what the Russians wanted. The Ukrainians brought in long-range artillery systems. They've brought in HIMARS. They are wasting HIMARS on the Kharkiv front right now. Like this is what you guys have to understand is the Russians created a new fire that the Ukrainians have to put out, and the Ukrainians decided that politically, strategically, for whatever reason, this incursion into the Belgorod region, which probably consisted of 15 to 20,000 Russians in total, so not a huge incursion. It's not a threat to Kharkiv. It's probably not even a threat to really the first line of defense. Except that the first line of defense wasn't set up properly because corruption in Ukraine, but that's a different story. The Ukrainians are using HIMARS. They're going to be using Storm Shadow cruise missiles on a part of the front that wasn't active 3 months ago. The Ukrainians could be using all of this in the east to defend their lines, strike Russian ammunition depots, do all of the things that they could do with all of this HIMARS ammunition, but instead they're firing it into the Belgorod region, which, I mean, it might have a small tactical impact on the front, but there's just no way that it's going to do enough to actually change the tide of the fight. I've heard a lot of people saying that this Kharkiv operation is a failure. We'll actually go over to the map now, and I'll show you guys the updates and everything, and we can talk about the Kharkiv region. But hold on, let me see. Get rid of my ugly mug there. Been looking at that long enough. All right. Up here in the Kharkiv region, this area right here, I'm not sure. I think I'm going to reduce it because most mappers don't have this connection made. I don't really see how the Russians don't have this area connected, at least in some way. I mean, it's connected through Russian territory back here, but it just feels like the Ukrainians holding positions right here would be incredibly difficult. But anyway, this is neither here nor there. This part of the map right here could technically be wrong, but this big chunk over here is right, and this chunk over here is right. So I lost my train of thought. I wanted to come over to the map for some reason. God damn it. Okay. So the Ukrainians are using, why this is a success for the Russians. Okay. So again, 20 to 15,000 troops committed for this. Ukrainians rotated basically what the Ukrainian sources that are realistic and talking about the situation are talking about is that the Ukrainians have about 40,000 troops in this region to potentially conduct some sort of counteroffensive operation. This is not what the Ukrainians want to do. This is not what the Ukrainians want to be forced into. Zelensky just stated that they were moving to an active defense, right? Like, or a defensive posture. They're no longer going to be going on offensive operations. If they are forced into a counteroffensive with their remaining available reserves in this area to push this minor incursion out, I mean, the Russians are barely across the border, right? The Russians could lose this and it wouldn't change anything in the aspect of the war, especially if the Ukrainians are completely ground down, like here in Vovchansk or, over here in this area. If the Ukrainians are ground down in offensive operations and they lose artillery systems and they're utilizing all of their HIMARS munitions and everything, that's kind of a win for the Russians, just that alone, because this is the area that needs to be defended, right? This is the area where HIMARS strikes would be very, very beneficial. This is the area where, just everything, the artillery, everything would be better over here because the Ukrainians have such a strong defensive posture. So I don't know if the Russians had this planned out before the Ukrainian incursions into the Belgorod region and the Kursk region and before the shelling and everything. But whatever the circumstances are, the Russians went in. They basically did more than the Ukrainians did in their counteroffensive, and definitely more than it's showing right now, right? With a much less numerous force. The Ukrainians had about 60,000 troops in the southern axis. They never committed them all because they never could find the right area to commit them all. So saying like they didn't lose 60,000 men here, but that was the force concentration for this operation, and they got nothing done. Meanwhile, the Russians crossed the border with a much smaller contingent, forced a massive Ukrainian rotation, is forcing a massive Ukrainian ammunition expenditure, and they are annihilating Ukrainian weapon systems and supply and manpower in this region with glide bombs. The Lancets have been, unbelievable. We had 302 Lancet hits in the month of May, which is like way higher than it was in April, like almost like 150 more Lancet strikes. So a significant uptick in the drone usage. We have confirmed Lancet strikes like behind Kharkiv over here. So the entire staging area for the Ukrainians for this area, for this operation, is under drone surveillance, ISR, missile strikes, glide bomb strikes all day. The Ukrainians are having such a difficult time responding, and they have stabilized, but their ability to actually go on the offensive here is going to be extremely hindered by that situation, by that circumstance. And what happens when the Ukrainians do commit in this region? The Russians if I were the Russians, I would just start poking in the Sumy region, right? Get the Ukrainians to move over here, get everything in this area. And then if they really want to commit, you do a slow withdrawal, I guess. I mean, not a withdrawal. You're just backing up as the Ukrainians are approaching, and you just grind them down, enter into the Sumy region. The Ukrainians are going to be forced to rotate troops to that area, and then you can just walk back in here. Like that's what I would be doing. I would be sending these small incursions because politically Ukraine seems to be in a position, in the way that they respond, Ukraine seems to be in a position to Ukraine seems to be in a position where they have to politically respond to this. They can't allow this to happen. If the Russians hold this, it really doesn't do a lot to the Ukrainians, right? That the Ukrainians should have never made this an issue to begin with. And I don't mean the Russian incursion was not the issue. The issue was they did their little incursions into these border towns and were shelling. So the Russians were forced to do this, right? That the Ukrainians could have avoided this whole thing, and now they have this fire that they have to put out. And like I said, if I were the Russians, I would just do this same thing, like this, but over here, right? Just do the same thing over here. That's all you have to do. And the Ukrainians are going to be forced to respond. And then perhaps you come down here in the Zaporozhye region and you begin offensive operations towards Kharkiv, and not major operations, just enough that you force the Ukrainians to rotate troops. And then you're starting to split them all over the map. Russian ISR has improved tremendously. So while the Ukrainians are transporting all of this, you can strike the train depots, the trains, everything. I mean, it's how you fight wars. I'm sorry, guys. My girlfriend came home and the dogs are being loud and crazy. So if you hear that, that's what's going on. Okay. I see we got some NAFO fanboys. Thank you, baby, in here. I appreciate that. Hey, guys, get you a girl who, hold on, let me remove this for a second. Get you a girl who just casually just brings you Sprites or whatever your favorite drink is, just without being asked. That's what's up. Thank you. Okay, back into it. Go to the map. I'm going to just talk about the other updates. What's up? Yeah, for sure. Okay. So here, the Russians are pushing again in the Chasiv Yar region. Remember, Ukrainian force concentration here has been reduced because they had to pull reserves over into the Chasiv Yar area. Can you guys hear that background noise? I don't want it to be too much. Let me know if you can hear that. There's just a little bit of noise going on in the background. So, oh, you can't? Awesome. This mic is pretty good. It doesn't pick up on a lot of stuff. So, all right. So the Russians have advanced most likely to the canal, the underground portion of the canal. The Russians, we have a geolocation of them in this area in a Earl truck or something like that. And the Ukrainians are responding with shelling, but that, I mean, it just shows that the Russians are here rather comfortably. So it's likely that the Ukrainians have retreated to this edge of Chasiv Yar across the canal. If they lose this micro district on the high ground here, things are going to get much, much more difficult for the Ukrainians. There are also still continued reports that the Russians have crossed into this area of Chasiv Yar over the canal again. There are two areas right here you can see where the canal is above ground right here. So it's a physical barrier. But then right here, it goes through culverts and is tunneled. So there's two areas where that happens. And that's where the Russians seem to be pushing on the northern southern axis. Okay. Down here, a slight improvement in the position in Ivanivsky. I got rid of the purple here. We had some conflicting reports about where the Russian and Ukrainian lines were. It seems like the area has stabilized here since the fall of Klishchivka and Andriivka. And the Ukrainians are still holding positions on this high ground right here. There is a fortification on this high ground that the Ukrainians are holding. The Russians need to capture that to begin operations on Stepochki. I think that this should be the primary focus of the Russian operation right now, securing this area and then beginning offensive operations towards Stepochki and Belgorod here, applying pressure to the Toretsk, New York salient and to Konstantinivka. Same comes from this direction. Primary focus for the Russians right now should be reaching this ring road. There's not a ton of active offensive operations in this region right now. I think the primary focus for the Russians actually is the Kharkiv area, just because of the massive amount of Ukrainian rotation that has been sent there. They're just going to really, really work to attrit that grouping. But there's still progress. The Russians are still conducting at least limited offensive operations. We have an advance out of Semenkivka. This is actually a pretty important advance. The Ukrainians have been very stubborn in this region and able to hold it for a very long time. So this advance is significant. You can see how the map has changed very, very much from what it used to be. This Avdiivka salient used to be incredibly small, and now it has expanded out quite a bit. Down here north of Natalove, we have a Russian advance through these fields. There is a large Ukrainian fortification around this lake. I mean, it's like a pond, but it looks private. I didn't know if it was like a water park, but it just looks like a pond. So the pond has a fortification around it. The Russians are now assaulting this fortified area. Once this falls, basically this entire little peninsula right here loses its last defensive fortification, and the Ukrainians will likely retreat across this little land bridge right here. All right. Further updates. The Russians continue to advance towards Konstantinivka, and most importantly to the 0532 highway that leads down to Vadyan and Ugledar. This is where I have said for a long time I expect a Russian offensive operation to occur. The Ukrainians have pulled a ton of reserves from this area to be moved up to the Kharkiv region. The 79th was pulled out of, I believe, Perskakivka, Konstantinivka area, where they had held Novomikhailivka for a very long time, as well as battalions of, I can't remember who was in Krasnohorivka. Maybe the 79th was in Krasnohorivka, and like the 110th was pulled out of Konstantinivka. One of those two, but these two areas lost their very, very quality brigades. Well, I don't know how quality they are now. Used to be quality brigades that were defending this region, and they were likely replaced with like territorial defense units. So not as strong, and the Russians are making advances because of it. The goal for the Russians, again, is just to reach this road and then strangle Vugledar of supply. And then down here in the south, we have a small Russian advance. Again, this is more like active defense. The Russians saw an opportunity. They advanced into a Ukrainian fortification in this region. Sort of the end of the story there. Things are moving slow right now, but that's because the fighting up here is so intense. The northern section of Vovchansk is basically completely gone. Most of the city is completely gone. It's turned into a Bakhmut. The amount of artillery from both sides has been incredibly high. In fact, the Ukrainians have slightly, I would say, stabilized their situation in the overall SMO. Since the funding came through and the deliveries of ammunition were made, this is not a long-term solution. This is not going to continue to happen. If you guys remember, the Czech president had come forward with a initiative to basically buy shells from the third world and deliver them to Ukraine. The report was that they had found 500,000 shells. A news article just came out the other day. I can actually maybe try to find it on my Twitter. But basically what it said was that of the 500,000 shells that the Czechs bought for Ukraine were basically garbage. They need to be refurbished before they can be used. And that's what happens when you start running out of ammunition and you have to go to the third world to find artillery ammunition. And they paid out the ass for it, guys. They paid so much money for these shells. And they're going to have to spend more money to refurbish them. And so the artillery shell allotment is not as much as it should have been, but the Ukrainians are getting more shells than they were previously. So that it's better for them this way. They also received a number of HIMARS missiles, likely Storm Shadows, and the ATACMS. So their deep strike capabilities have improved. Their ammunition, their shell hunger has abated, at least for now. We'll see how long that lasts. So the Ukrainians are in a better situation, and you might not see as much Russian progress in the immediate short term while whatever Ukraine is planning up in this region is going on. I still think, I mean, we're still early in the summer, so I still believe that the Russians are going to embark on a larger offensive operation. But I think that this whole situation up here in the north did not go according to plan for either side. I think that the Russians were surprised by what they accomplished in such a short period of time, and I think the Ukrainians were surprised by how poorly they defended over that short period of time. And so I think that this area is going to become sort of I think this just sort of, threw a wrench in the whole thing for both sides. So we'll see what comes out of this. I think it's benefiting the Russians slightly more just because the Ukrainians are forced to rotate troops up here. The Russians have the advantage in glide bombs, missiles. They have an air superiority. They don't have air supremacy, but we haven't seen an Su-34 get taken down in quite a long time. The Ukrainians are not bringing their air defense up to the border, if they even really have very much air defense anymore. The recent strikes we saw, we actually had a very large strike day. It included 48 missiles, which is more than most of the recent strikes. Usually we get 4 Tu-95 strategic bombers airborne. They launch 20 to 30 missiles, cruise missiles. Ukrainian air defense has been depleted. So, the Russians haven't been doing these 100 missile barrages. They're just not needed anymore to achieve the results that they need to. And we saw the Zaporozhye Dam, the hydroelectric plant here, get hit. The road across it is no longer, it's right here, no longer operational because it suffered structural damage. This was hit by 4 either Caliber or X-101. I believe it was KH-101 cruise missiles fired by Tu-95s. We also saw the let's see, I got to zoom out a little bit here. We also saw the hydroelectric plant in Vinnytsia get hit. I don't know where that is off the top of my head. I know it's around, but we saw that area get hit. We also saw hits at the Stry gas storage facility, one of the largest in Europe. Again, it's been targeted multiple times by Kinzhals. This time it looks like it was hit by either 4 KH-101 cruise missiles fired by Tu-95s, or a few of the 8 Caliber cruise missiles that were launched from the Black Sea. Odessa's been getting pummeled. Nikolaev's been getting pummeled. The Russians just have the advantage across the board in almost every single aspect, and I just think they're going to let this Kharkov operation play out a little bit. The Ukrainians are rotating so much material into this region that it's just like shooting in a barrel right now. And, if it eases up the ability for the Russians to push through the actual strong defenses in the east, this is just a win-win for the Russians. Again, I would like to see a small incursion into the Sumy region. I believe that would, that would be, if there is one more incursion, I don't know if the Ukrainians are going to be able to respond in the same order that they responded to this incursion. I think that the Ukrainians are getting to the bottom of their barrel. All right, we got some questions here. Oh, Tyler, what is up? Thanks, man. Appreciate the analysis. Tyler, I appreciate you as always, man. This guy is the OG right here. He has been listening for a very, very long time. Good friend, good guy. Everybody give Tyler a shout out. Is Kharkov another Bakhmut operation? I think it is sort of lining up like that, where they're going to grind the Ukrainians down. Now, not Kharkov, not the city, just the incursion. Remember, Putin said openly that Kharkov is not the goal. The goal is a sanitation zone. All right. Thoughts on the Russian incursion into the Baltic states? Holy cow. Okay, that's a steep shift in conversation, but yeah, no, I don't. That doesn't make any sense. The only reason you're ever going to see a Russian incursion into these states is if the entire NATO alliance basically collapses for some reason. I don't think that that's going to happen for in the near future, at least. I think if the NATO alliance is tested, it will struggle. And I don't mean tested in a military sense. I mean in a, I don't know, how would you say this? Tested in a political sense, maybe. If there was some sort of incursion into Estonia, just for whatever reason, or so, they say that there was some sort of issue between Belarus and Lithuania on the border. They have the migrant issue. They send migrants into Poland. So there could be some issue on the border. If there was a clash here, and for some reason Article 5 should be activated between one of these two countries, Russia, Belarus, and NATO does not respond, that would be the end of the whole illusion of security through the united countries of NATO. If they don't respond appropriately, then the trust and the faith in Article 5 disappears. So I don't think you're going to see an incursion into NATO territory anytime soon. I don't think Russia has any means to do that. Even the propaganda coming out from Britain about where Russia is going to invade next, they don't talk about NATO. They say that Russia is going to invade Georgia again. They say that Russia is going to invade Kazakhstan again, which I don't really see why. If you can turn these places, Georgia is going through some trouble. Georgia is actually a possibility. The Russians might have to invade Georgia again. I don't know. If they have another Maidan-style coup, I don't think that the Russians are going to sit there and let Georgia be Ukrainized, right, and turned into a Ukraine to be used against them. I don't think that's going to happen. Question. Do you think the Ukrainian strategic planning is tied to some sort of key performance indicators? Oh, let me think about that. I don't necessarily think so. And just because, I mean, I don't know, are you talking about in terms of the way the West approaches Ukraine? Because those key indicators, I don't know if the US even knows what's going on in Ukraine to the fullest extent. Like, I don't know if they know every single thing that's happening in the country the way that they should. If you're talking about Ukraine, probably. All right, I'm done with the map. I have one article that I want to show you guys, and that is on the Vladimir Zelensky summit that he has coming up. So I'm just going to read this. This is from BBC. Zelensky accuses Russia and China of undermining summit. Okay, well, Russia isn't invited, so they can't. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky has accused Russia and China of attempting to undermine his upcoming global peace summit. Not a global peace summit if China and Russia aren't there, in Switzerland. He said Russia was trying to dissuade other states from attending the event and that China was working to do this as well. So this is smart from Zelensky. Zelensky knows who the US's priorities are, right? If he can somehow interdict himself into Southeast Asia and create an alliance with whatever proxy that the US is going to try to set up in Southeast Asia, the same that they did with Ukraine. This is actually the first smart thing I've seen him do, trying to invoke China into this whole thing, because that's the way to get the US interested, right? He said that, let's see, speaking at an Asian security forum, he also said there were, quote, elements of Russian weaponry that come from China. Yeah, no shit. They're trade partners. They are going to buy materials and certain parts and stuff from China that they don't have on hand. That's just global trade. That's how it works. China says it does not side with either side of the Ukraine war, a position that has been increasingly questioned, particularly by the U.S. Surprise, surprise, the U.S. Is suspicious of China and Russia. Oh man, it's almost like they are trying to force regime change in both of these countries and economically destroy them. All right, suspicion is confirmed, I would say. All right. that was the only news article I have. Go ahead, guys. Get in some questions. Go ahead. I'll do a little chat with you guys before we sign off here. I hope everybody's doing good on this Sunday. Did I get shorter? Go sit up. Sitting back in my chair too much. Let's see. We got a question up here. How much longer can Ukraine fight this war until they run out of manpower and personnel? Honestly, man, we don't know. We know that there are severe manpower shortages. Actually, let me go over to my Twitter real fast, and I have a post that I wanted to show you guys. Thank you for reminding me, Dylan. Let's see. No. Okay, so here's one article from the Washington Post. I couldn't actually bring this one up because you have to pay for the Washington Post, and I don't feel like paying for the Washington Post. Basic training in Ukraine is barely covering the basics, commanders say. Ukrainian commanders in the field say they are bracing for most of the new troops under their conscription law to arrive with poor training. And when they say poor training, guys, I hope you know they mean no training. These men are not going through anything that could be compared to basic training in the United States. They might be, inducted into a 1-week crash course, how to clean an AK, how to load a gun, and how to sit in a trench properly. That's basically what they're getting. The men that are also not very well trained are not going to have good morale because they were the ones that have been ripped off the streets and thrown into vehicles. If you guys follow me on Patreon and you do watch my demonetized series, I will be showing a series of new videos of Ukrainian civilians that are now pretty actively fighting back against the military recruitment officers. So this is a key indicator of the situation. Even if they have meat, they don't have trained meat. So that's the problem, right? And then I had one more article I think that I wanted to show. Yeah. Oh, nope, that's not it. Nope. No. Okay. Yeah, I don't know where it is, but that's okay. We'll close that out. Basically, maybe it wasn't an article, maybe it was just a quote that the Ukrainians are now. Oh yeah, the Ukrainian government has just issued a statement saying that they are going to conscript the emergency services of Ukraine. So firefighters, EMTs, police officers, basically the last people you take off of their jobs because of the criticality of their positions. Structure fires are kind of dangerous, and you need people who know how to deal with them. That's how bad the manpower situation in Ukraine is. If you wanted to know, they're taking people off the streets and throwing them into vans, and they are forcing their emergency responders into combat roles. There you go. That's the overall situation. Was I once a soldier? No, I have never served in a military. I have private security training. I know how to shoot a gun. I know how to clear a room. But I don't have traditional military training. No. Don't claim to. I'm not. That's not me. I am a large picture analyst. I don't talk about squad level tactics. I don't talk about stuff like that. Sometimes I touch on it just but I don't specialize in that. That's not my thing. I'm not trying to push that sort of narrative of myself at all. Yep, scraping the barrel. That's exactly what they're doing. Why do people keep asking that? Because it's interesting. First off, I think I look like I was probably maybe in the military. Bald guy, big. I mean, why not? But because people want to know. It adds another level of knowledge and experience that you can't really understand unless you're actively in combat or in the military. The structure, everything like that. I've been very close to the military through my friends. All of my friends went into the Marine Corps. And so I've been very close with it. I've had family that's in the military. My uncle was in the Marine Corps as well. So, I understand it. I understand the culture of it. but I don't understand it in that I wasn't there. I haven't experienced it. So there is a certain piece of experience that is missing from my analysis when it comes to the stuff that's happening in Ukraine, because I just don't know. But even if I was in the US military, the Ukrainian and Russian militaries are different from the US military and how they operate. So if I was in the US military, I wouldn't really know squad level stuff in Ukraine or Russia. And I would have to be Soviet trained, I would assume. And also, I don't know if you guys have met a lot of people in the military, and this is not a diss. I just know a lot of Marines. They wouldn't make very good analysts. They made good Marines. That's what they did. That's what they were. So military experience doesn't often translate to the real world. And if you want a perfect example of that, Google a guy called Ben Hodges and look at his predictions and takes over the course of the Ukraine war. That is a general, and he has been. My girlfriend just fell over there. All right. Let's see. Now that the U.S. has given the green light for attacks in Russia, how long will it take until U.S. bases in the Middle East are hit by proxies? I don't know, man. I don't know how connected. I think that people try to find a lot of connections between Iran and. Hey, could you shut this window? That vacuum is annoying. I think people look for a lot of connections between what China's doing and what Russia is doing and what Iran is doing, North Korea is doing, this, that, and the other. And these countries are separate, guys. Iran has their own interests and own priorities. They're not going to start striking U.S. bases because the U.S. gave Ukraine the green light to strike Russia. Those are two separate entities. Those are two separate wars. I mean, if you want to call it a world war and you want to say that they're in an alliance and that's what they're going to start doing, if we see that, that's going to be a wild change of pace. But for right now, we're not really in that hot phase of the war where sides are working together globally to attack a certain, the hegemony in this instance would be the United States. Yes, Scott Ritter was a Marine. Hey, and guess what? He was like a Marine. He had a very, very specific MOS that potentially could lead him to be a good analyst, right? He had political, diplomatic experience. He did the nuclear. Oh my God, I'm sorry, I'm blanking it. Where they went over and they checked on Russia's nuclear arsenal, the inspection. He was a nuclear inspector. So he has a lot more experience in that world. Yes, Brian Berletic was also a soldier, and Brian Berletic is unlike any Marine I have ever met in my entire life. That is a different person. And go check out Brian Berletic at the New Atlas, guys. He does great work over there. Make sure you go check him out. Ray McGovern was in the CIA. And yeah, no, guys, I'm not saying that you can't be in the military and do, I'm not saying that you can't be a good analyst and be in the military. I'm saying that being an infantryman does not automatically make you an expert on everything military and how geopolitics works and how larger strategy works. That's all I was trying to say. Calibrated, you'd catch a rodent going. Oh man, I love this channel. Thank you, man. I'm glad you love this channel, Louis. I love you. Here we go. See this? I love when people show up late. No, bro, I wasn't in the military. I have, like I said, I have high-level security training. I know how to clear a room. I know how to shoot a gun. But I don't have, I was never in the U.S. military. What does this say? To me, it's strange to bother learning a place's history in depth and not bothering to learn about the rules and pronunciations. I don't know what that is even referencing. Get in some questions, guys. Get in some questions. Aiden, I really appreciate your work. Avocado Man, I really appreciate you. Thank you for watching on Twitter. Yeah, hit that like button and subscribe, guys. And don't forget to follow me on Telegram and Twitter. That's where you can get constant updates. Should Russia declare war and fully mobilize? No, I think that they're already in a state of war. I don't think that there's any need to change anything. The Russians will do what they need to do. They don't. It does not appear doesn't seem to be any manpower issues on the Russian side. It doesn't look like they need to mobilize at all. Their volunteer numbers have been very, very strong, according to Western sources, is not according to Russian sources. So, yeah, I don't think we'll see anything like that in the near future, but I could be wrong. You know, I can only go off of what I can see through open source intelligence, right? I don't know how many casualties the Ukrainians have sustained, like specifically. I don't know how many casualties the Russians have sustained. I can just give estimates and guesses, just like anybody else who doesn't have, top secret clearance to that information. Question: what is the difference between a Ukraine mechanized brigade and an assault brigade? Well, a mechanized brigade is going to have much more armor involved. Also, usually, in my experience, the level of training between a mechanized brigade and an assault brigade is very different. The mechanized brigades tend to be the best that Ukraine has. The assault brigades aren't bad, but I just think that the mechanized brigades are really the bulwark of Ukraine's armed forces. They tend, like the 47th, the 79th, the 110th, and it's like 130th or something. Those mechanized brigades have done really good throughout this conflict. What's the difference between David and a pile of cat poo? Cat poo is quiet and doesn't make itself look like an idiot 24/7. I would say that's probably the primary difference. He is spiraling, dude. I don't know if you guys have gone on over to David's podcast or David's channel lately. I would not recommend it if you want to maintain your brain cells. But if you want to laugh, head over, check it out. He is going off the rails. He is spiraling, and he called me a communist today. I don't know if you guys have been listening to me very long, but I am not. Nothing. I'm not bashing communism. I mean, historically, I don't think it's really worked out very well. So I don't trust people, and I think people are the primary reason why, utopian ideas fail regularly. I think people are selfish, greedy creatures. So I don't think it would particularly ever work the way it's supposed to. But hey, whatever you guys want to go for, I don't care. Yeah, see, one of us. But when you're a boomer like David, when you're a boomer like all the NAFO, which is so weird that they're 50 and 60 and on Twitter. That's so weird. I feel too old almost to be on Twitter like I am. David D on Twitter. If you don't know him, you are living the life. That blissful ignorance, I want you to maintain that. He just assumes what these boomers do is they group everybody. So if you say anything anti-Ukrainian, you're automatically pro-Russian and you're automatically a communist somehow, which Russia isn't a communist state anymore. I don't know what they're living in 1984. It's fiction. I don't know. They have no basis in reality. It's pretty wild. Crazy times. Question. Let's see. What is the most rational pro-Ukrainian YouTube channel? I don't know if he's pro-Ukrainian, but I was watching a guy here. Let me see. One of you guys. I don't know if you're watching. His name is Epstein's understudy, which is funny. I didn't realize that was his name. He sent me this guy. Let's see. His name is, I know you guys are probably going to know him. Ryan Beth. I'm pretty sure he's pro-Ukrainian. I've only really watched 2 of his videos. The one that he did on History Legends Meatwave video. He seems pretty knowledgeable. I didn't hear anything particularly wrong with what he said. But I don't watch a lot of pro-Ukrainian YouTube just because most of it is just delusion. Like, I'll sit here and I'll tell you that the Russians are taking losses. You go over to a YouTube channel, or the Ukrainians and the Russians are taking losses, and the battle's going to go on for a while, and it's a war of attrition. It's slow, this, that, and the other. You go over to the Ukrainian YouTube channels, they're talking about 8-to-1 kill death ratios, like a genocide is happening against the Russians or something. It's crazy. Good job, thank you, brother. Good job. Nice, cute cat too. Oh, that's gross. Ryan Macbeth. Ryan Macbeth. You guys can go watch him. I don't know. I'm not overly promoting his channel. I don't know everything he said. If you guys know something that I don't know, I just found him, but listening to him, he just sounded really good. He sounded like he knew what he was talking about. Okay. This guy, I'm going to just put you in timeout because he's talking about sex stuff, which is weird. Yeah, he's pro-Ukraine, but objective. And also, I'm going to give a shout out to one of the newer pro-Ukrainian accounts on Twitter. This individual I know he's going to get some hate, but I don't care. This individual, I've been talking to him since he basically started covering the war. We exchange information all the time. He comes to me with a lot of stuff that I can't see everything, guys. There are so many Telegram channels that I have on my phone. My notifications are like buzzing 24/7, so I can't get to everything. But this guy right here, if you guys want a good pro-Ukrainian source, he is pro-Ukrainian. We've had multiple small arguments and discussions and DMs and stuff. We differ in opinion, but the AKM mapping right here, he covers the Ukraine. He does mapping like me. He's good. I would follow this guy. Go follow. Oh, he hit 2,000. Yay, good for him. Go follow AKM mapping. He is an excellent source. He actually realistically talks about the situation for Ukraine and how Ukraine can approach it and stuff like that. So yeah, go check him out. He is the man, AKM. I retweet him sometimes. So if you guys follow me on Twitter, you can find him. He's good. Military Summary Channel, and this is all I watch. Well, hey, I'm glad I can be grouped in with that. That's fantastic. Military Summary Channel has a great method of his work, so that's good. All right, I'll do this last question, guys, and then I think I'm going to wrap it up. Do you think Ukraine will start targeting Belarus? Guys, I do. I think that they're going to start targeting Belarus. I think that they're going to start targeting everywhere. So just that's coming. Get ready. It's going to be ATACMs. It's going to be Storm Shadows. It's going to be everything. It's going to come one after another slowly. The U.S. is going to allow this, allow that. Okay, they can strike this. It's that. You just get ready for it. It's coming. Belarus assisted Russia at the beginning of the military operation. I don't see why they couldn't go against. I think it would be a horrible idea for Ukraine to strike Belarus. I think that would be a fantastic mistake, but that's what it's going to be. Yeah. So, guys, you guys take care. I appreciate you all from all around the world tuning in. I know it's late for some of you. It's early for others. For some of you, it's midday. I appreciate you all tuning in to watch my dumbass talk for over an hour about Ukraine. I appreciate you so much. Go follow me on Twitter, Telegram, and Patreon for more content, guys. Please take care of yourselves, and I will see you tomorrow, 2 p.m. Eastern time. We are back on schedule. I am sleeping. 2 p.m. Eastern time. Tune in. We will be talking more Ukraine. Goodbye, guys.